So I was listening to Alfie Kohn this morning, and if you don't know Alfie Kohn, he's a very progressive educator. Doesn't believe in homework. Has a lot of studies against it. It's a really interesting researcher, and he's talking about cheating. How kind of we set up our learning environment when you make grades important, when you emphasize competition. Then cheating starts happening more and more because people want to be first, they want to win, they want to prove that they know stuff. And I think in my practice about this all the time because there is some cheating going on. There's a lot of lack of motivation. There's a lot of very low ability, not ability, knowledge. And so, um, how do I change my practice to get students more engaged? Not to doing when we say more engaged, we're always like perform better on tests. No, just to become more engaged, more interested in what they are learning. Um, that's what I want to mean by more engaged. And it's difficult because we weren't brought up that way. That's not the type of learner I am, even, right? I'm the type of learner who likes to do 50 math problems and figure out kind of complexities and nuances after learning the first one. Um, and I remember stuff pretty well, and I go back when I see other people teach us how to do stuff and whatnot. I remember mistakes I made, and learn from those. But most people aren't really like that. Most people don't really like um, slogging through bunches of problems and just looking for nuance because they don't probably care that much about the subject or whatnot. So then the question becomes, how do you keep students engaged when you're required to hit a certain curriculum and make sure people meet standards and whatnot? And that becomes really hard. That's the hard part of teaching. The hard part of teaching is not knowing the students because they're willing to talk about you, and as you talk about yourself, they'll respond. Uh, you'll get to know them as you correct their work. You'll get to know how they think and how well they understand stuff. But getting them engaged and playing with the stuff and then making that more than just a one time thing, something that persists across a long time, that starts becoming really hard. And that's not something curriculum writers care about. That's not something your principal probably cares about. Your principal probably says, like ours, make this proficiency scale, make sure students meet the standards so that when we do these standardized tests, they grow. And that makes us look good and that keeps our job and stuff like that. But um, that leads to the grades because that's, hey, you have to do this work. And if you do it, I'll give you this reward, which is a grade. Oh, you got to do it faster or better, so I'll make competition for you. And that's where all of it comes in to meet those specific needs. And so writing the curriculum and designing the lessons that don't rely on those external motivators but is still effective, that's really hard. um, that's why I like things like building thinking classrooms and math is figure outable and making math moments because they're not always trying to get away from that, but that's kind of where they're going with it. That's where their engagement starts coming in. Let's make the math more interesting, more engaging um, in what we have to teach. And so, as a teacher, I shouldn't be I shouldn't be designing the curriculum, right? The curriculum, these huge publishing companies should be doing it, but they're not because their motive is profit, and profit is getting something out that somebody will buy as cheaply as possible. And so that has nothing to do with engagement. Um, and so, and because schools are measured on these meeting progress, and you can always juice those stats by increasing competition. So for a short period of time, if you increase competition and reward people with grades, then the short term the goals go up, which is what they want, because we're in middle school, kids maybe 3 years. I got them for 1 year. You know, that's not a long time, and you can juice those stats and never run out of juice. Um, so there's no real incentive anywhere in education to take that long-term effect, that keep people engaged, teach them how to learn, teach them how to explore stuff in interesting ways, even in stuff they don't necessarily like or think they like when they first started doing it. Um, and so that's a really difficult job. Um, and I suppose parents are the only people who are really going to be long-term factors in that, but parents aren't educators, and their experience in education has been that traditional external grade structure and competition, probably even worse than ours. So they don't even know to ask for it because they're not listening to Alfie Kohn. They don't even know who he is. So, all right, it's 6.5 minutes, so this is a long enough rant for now.